What did an average day look like working under a Michelin-star chef?
You're pretty much on your feet for 16 hours a day, 5 days a week, 2 days off.
You've been on MasterChef, you've worked under a Michelin-star chef. What made you decide to leave that all behind?
Sometimes you have to look at that and say, maybe that's just not me. And there's other ways, there's other things you can do to still be then happy with your life.
What would you say are three key, let's call them secret ingredients to a happy life? Hello and welcome to Coffee Charge Conversations here at Real Global Productions. Today we are joined with the season 4 fourth place contender of MasterChef South Africa 2021, Sims Kubeka. Sims, welcome to Coffee Charge Conversations.
Hi everybody. Hey, nice to be here. Quite excited.
So what was it like the first time you stepped into the MasterChef South Africa kitchen?
Sure, going back to that day specifically, that was a very intimidating day. It was a lot. We were 20 chefs, 20 people you didn't really know much of, and you didn't really know how good their cooking skills were. Before that, all we really had was a little make an omelette challenge. So everyone can make an omelette. But to see how someone really cooks was rather intimidating. So it brought a lot of fear, but a bit of excitement too, because it was something new.
And what made you decide to enter MasterChef in the first place?
So that's actually a very funny story. I've always been a watcher of MasterChef back in the days, even the Australian one actually.
Yeah.
And one day when I was watching with my partner, she looked at me and I was mocking the TV saying, I could do that. I mean, who can't do that? And she was like, oh, let me sign you up for MasterChef South Africa. And I thought she was joking. But she filled out the application form, submitted everything, sent it through. I get an email later saying, hey, we want to have an interview. And there I was, starting the journey. And I can't say I'd look back and say it wasn't a fun one. So it was interesting.
What was, I mean, obviously you get a perspective of what it could be like on TV. What was the most surprising thing when you actually were in MasterChef?
Honestly, how strict they are. Because it's a competition and they want everything to be fair for everybody. We did have it during COVID time, so it was a bit of a struggle to have all the contestants housed in one place. So we were stuck in a hotel and we didn't have access to a kitchen to practice our cooking skills or try and improve them. So it was probably, super hard to actually get into it. But once in it, we were kind of okay. It was difficult times.
What was it like being on camera for the first time?
Oh, yeah. Now, camera is a different situation. Hey, we literally had 5 people floating around us at all times. There was a camera at this side, there was a camera at this side, and the less and less contestants there were, the more and more cameras there were looking at you. So there's nothing not seen. There was a joke about how someone tried to scrape some like toast that was burnt into the dustbin and say, no, it wasn't burnt. But there's 5 cameras watching you scrape that in. So it's not like you can hide it. So it really did. It really did. It was a learning curve. And then all the interviews afterwards to try and get you to recall what happened. That's probably the hardest part because you have to also say it in current text. So you have to be like, we're about to walk into the kitchen, but we did that earlier.
I really hope I don't mess up this dish. And then in the back of your
I already
head,
screwed it up. It's done. So that was a very much so learning. But I guess the longer you're in it, the more comfortable you get and the more easy it becomes. So it became like second nature after a while. But yeah, it is a learning curve.
And how is it coming forth? I mean, just one spot outside of the prizes.
That possibly is my biggest pet peeve of MasterChef. It was a competition, so I had no expectations, of course, to get anything. But for everyone who was top 3 to receive one of every item in the kitchen was just like, that sucks. But from that, I did get many other opportunities, which I feel that some of the other contestants might not have. And it's been a blessing regardless. So,
What kind of opportunities did you get?
so I've been blessed enough to actually go to France and work under a Michelin-star chef. It's not the same. It's really not the same as working on the MasterChef kitchen or any kitchen in South Africa. Strict, stringent rules, and that experience did give me a lot to learn from. There's a lot to learn from those guys. Besides it being in a French kitchen, they speak very little English. But once you've learned the grooves and stuff, the practices that they use, the techniques are second to none, if any. So I got to experience all of that. I've worked in some of the best kitchens in South Africa, down in Duntwalo at the Chef's Warehouse. I ran a little bar type of kitchen, so it's given me that exposure and experience. So that's been fun. And yeah, it's truly graced me with a lot of experiences in the food world. So it hasn't been anything to look down upon, even coming forth in that case.
Is cooking something like how you see it on shows like Hell's Kitchen and stuff like that? Is it as hostile?
50-50. You get moments where a bit of hostility is required. You know that saying, too many chefs in the kitchen and the pot starts to look a bit weird. So there sometimes does need to be a stringent leader to tell, hey, no. But at the same time, you become a family. I must say, in working in the French kitchen, where I did feel like it really is like Hell's Kitchen, where head chef speaks and we say, yes, chef. That the most words spoken during service is, yes, chef.
Yeah.
And you learn. But afterwards, as soon as service is done, we're grabbing a beer together. We're de-stressing together. We go partying together. You become a little family that knows it's just kitchen, that's work, keep it professional. Afterwards, we can bitch and moan about anything and relax. So 100% in that field.
What did an average day look like working under a Michelin star chef in France?
You wake up at 8. Well, there's different sections. So different sections kind of come in at different times. If you're in pastry, you'd be up at about 8. You receive deliveries by about 11. You've made all the bread, buns, everything like that before about 12 o'clock. You have an hour lunch where you kind of get to go home and take a young nap if you can. And then you come back at about 2 and you prepare for the service. And then you're pretty much on your feet for 16 hours a day, 5 days a week, 2 days off. It's hectic. It's not for the faint of heart, I must say. If you're a chef, you do it because you really, really want to love. You really love food and you love making people happy with your food. But yeah, no, 16 hours easy. And then the funny thing is that you have a Sunday and Monday off in France. But on a Sunday and Monday, everything's closed.
Yeah.
Everyone believes in full rest. Nothing is available. Even takeout is struggles. So it really is a full-on rest day. And then come Tuesday, you're up and at it, and you're back at it for a whole week.
So I also watch a little bit of MasterChef, mostly MasterChef Australia. And one thing that I find I would really struggle with is the time limit. How did you handle the pressure of having a time limit?
Well, you're always looking at the clock. Sometimes I swear that clock moved faster, and sometimes I swear it would stop. It never did, but you'd be there and you're like, it's stopping. It's really just in that moment. It was high pressured and it was a lot, but you kind of learn to get a bit faster. They do, of course, try to teach you a few tips and tricks to get things done faster, to expedite. But yeah, you learn. There are some times where you'll see someone doesn't put it on the dish because it's not ready. Like, it didn't work out, not this time.
Yeah.
So you do have those little moments where the clock is not your friend. But if you do get the clock on your side, your dish is good.
Fair enough. What was the longest cook that you ended up doing?
I think it was a 3-hour challenge where we were feeding some of the healthcare workers because it wasn't COVID time. So we were just giving them a bit of a thank you. And it was 3 different meals by 2 different teams. And on that day, I swear the clock it disappeared. It moved so fast. I literally was down making potatoes, looked up, and it was 3 hours gone. And I was like, but I just made potato chips. What did I do? And yeah, I did expose you to how a kitchen kind of also is, where you put your head down to start something and you look up again and it's already time for service. It's chaotic.
Have you always been quite good at multitasking?
Oh hell no! If multitasking, no. I had to train myself a lot for MasterChef actually in that regard, because I like to watch one thing get done and be done with it before moving on to the next one to make sure that it's done to the standard. But no, that's that's not how you MasterChef, to be honest. 3 pots on the stove, oven's going. You want to borrow somebody else's oven. You've asked nicely, and they're like, they need it, and you're like, come on, bro. I think I needed more. Come on, I needed more. So you have those moments. Yeah, it's multitasking and thinking on your feet at at a snail's pace. I mean, at a leopard's pace, because it changes. 50 seconds, a minute in, you think you're doing this, and then the ice cream machine doesn't want to work for you that day the way you want it to. So it's no longer a sorbet, it's a drink. Let's pivot. Let's redesign the meals, change it up, switch it up onto something new. So it did force you to also have that quick thinking kind of capabilities too. So yeah.
And then when you had a dish that you maybe weren't 100% comfortable with, how did you handle that criticism from the judges?
So, excuse me. So for me, I always had a good story. I like to believe that was always I could always find a story to relate it to, whether it be a braai with the varsity boys, whether it be a late night and we always went out. You'd relate it to something personal, which kind of then takes the perception of the dish slightly different. And with that story, the judges can maybe see why that would be something you're engaging in. Because I mean, who has chilies and chocolate and a brownie and ice cream? And it's like, I don't think this. But when you say it was some hungover boys and needing something to eat on a Friday afternoon, and that's all there was, it's like, I think this is better than what you guys would have made then. So we get it. So there is always critique, though, I must say. The judges were a bit ruthless, specifically the French guy we had, Greg. He was very particular in what he wanted and how he wanted. So everything had to, of course, been tracked back to its origins. And if you kind of fucked it up, you'd be like, hey, are you sure that's what that is?
And then you start to doubt yourself.
I had that quite a few times. I think I was the meme of MasterChef with that was, what's a confit? He came up to my station in the middle of me trying to confit some potatoes. And he looks at me and says, do you know what you're doing? And I'm like, is this not what your recipe said I must do? He's like, it just says confit. So what's a confit? And I'm like, well, if you wrote it, how should I know what it's supposed to be then? So it was a meme that went a while. So yeah, he was fun.
And adapting to new things, obviously they've got the mystery box challenge. I kind of feel like life at the moment is like a mystery box challenge, dude. Each day I'm just like, okay, what are we getting thrown at us today,
100%. And I think the 2 mystery boxes that we did have that I went through were absolute. I looked at the box and I was like, and where do you even find these stuff in the grocery aisle? Because I've never seen them before.
Yeah.
And it does, again, force you to have to think on your feet. You start looking at recipes you've seen mom cook and say, okay, it was chicken, but I'll make it abalone today, I guess. This fish will be chicken today. So it has to work. And you really do get put on the spot, but you adapt. You kind of learn quickly that you can't really fuck it up too bad, I guess.
Yeah.
The judges might not like it, but you tried, right? That's the whole mission, I guess.
What was the most difficult ingredient that you got given to work with?
I wouldn't say it was an ingredient per se. It was a mystery box.
Okay.
And it was a vegan mystery box. Now, I'm someone who loves meat. There's very little vegan in my life. And I was put there with pears, cauliflower, sunflower seeds. And I was just like, this is all that I give to like my hamsters and stuff. Like, what am I gonna do with this? Like, how do you make a meal with stuff you're just not accustomed to? And yeah, I think that was also one of the dishes I was most sus about. I mean, I put a giant pear in the middle of a cauliflower soup and thought it makes sense in my head. Not really. I just tasted it and was very confused. It was like baby food with solids and yeah.
So there you had to really get your storytelling
Oh
on point.
man, that challenge was another one. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I know how to make a soup. The pear just fell in and it just looked cool, so we went with it. Yeah, that was one of the days I did think I was going home, but luckily I didn't. It tasted good. That saved me.
So after MasterChef, you did a culinary degree, and then I don't know if you still do, but you said that you do a bit of like private cooking.
Yes.
What has that been like?
A lot better. Being a private chef kind of gives you the freedom to kind of do what you want, and also you can kind of cater slightly differently. Being in a restaurant, it's kind of a set menu, slight variations, but it's very somebody else's idea. Being a private chef, you've got free reign to kind of course, you get the client's dietary requirements and specs, of course, but you kind of get told, hey, I want this for dinner. What can you do? And I mean, sometimes you can deconstruct it, you can take it fancy all the way, sometimes you go rustic, and it's very different to the people, but it's a lot more personal as well. So it gives it that special touch. It doesn't feel like it was mass done, quick manufactured, passed on to the next guy, just plated and given. So that's fun. You also get to meet a lot of interesting people when doing that. But then you also get to hear all the interesting dietary requirements that some people have, like no fish, but caviar is okay. Is it not fish eggs? Is it not?
That kind of sounds like a choice though, more than a
But
dietary requirement. I guess.
that's what they put on, right? And you're sitting there like, okay, so I can give you a caviar with chips, but I can't give you like steak, tuna steak. Okay, interesting. But there's also then you see a lot of the allergies that the world has. There's a lot of celiacs out there. There's a lot of diabetics. So sugar's a big thing. High blood pressure with salt. So you just have to be very mindful, I guess. So it gives you that skill to at least be able to accommodate different people. But yeah, it's a lot more fun than being in a kitchen.
And apart from the actual cooking side of things, what do you miss now, looking back at like your time at the MasterChef kitchen?
Well, in this economy, I definitely say it's the groceries. We had a fully stocked fridge with everything. I mean, you wanted for nothing. You said you want lamb today. If it wasn't in the fridge, the guys would make a plan to get it for you. So there was always that. So, I could go back to that kitchen any day. And if that could be my pantry, I think we'd be okay. I think it could be much, much better.
Is there a dish or a type of cuisine that you've like always struggled with that you want to master?
Yo, that's hard, hey. There's actually quite a lot that I think I still don't know. I always dwell in the very similar realms. I stick with the Italian, European side. American food being, of course, just big foods and sweet foods. African dishes are very interesting. My partner has slightly come around to some of the African foods that we make, and she'll eat them now. Your tripes, your offals, she's okay with that. But yeah, there's many. Hey, I think I'd definitely like to try the Malaysian, Filipino style cookings. They're also very veggie focused, which is very different for me. So I definitely want to try something out of my comfort zone.
Nice. And what would you say is a cuisine that you are actually quite specialized in?
I'd like to say anything that's pasta related. I know I'm not Italian, but I love pasta. I make pasta, fresh pasta regularly, at least once a week, be it a ravioli, be it, and not just Italian pastas in that case. You get pasta is in essence just a a dough of sort. They call it a dumpling in essence. So you get different types of dumplings. You get the Japanese with the gyozas, pan fried dumplings. Love that. Even making them from scratch. I like the Arabics and Turkish style manti pasta, small squares. Also, you make the dough. So I really like the whole that style, make it yourself kind of pastery feels.
So obviously, not everyone who listens to the show is good at cooking. But what's an easy recipe that people can make that they probably don't know about?
Well, I guess everyone knows how to make mac and cheese, right?
It should be easy, yeah, in theory.
um, I'd actually say it's something called a rice pilaf. Um, it's something I at least make once a month to maybe once every second week, which is chopped up veggies, your onions, carrots, garlic, some rice, basmati, jasmine, whatever you have, and you just pop it in the oven with some chicken stock or stock, just covering it, cover it with some foil, toss it in the oven. 40 minutes to an hour later, your rice is done. It's flavored nicely, and you can have that with rice, with chicken, with steak, with anything. And it's also quick because you don't have to actually stand and cook. It's literally poured into, shove it in the oven, and you've got your day back. So that's something I think people should definitely try more of.
And your culinary journey, how has that shaped who you are now? You now work as a software developer.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's taught me a lot of discipline. One thing about culinary is definitely that you have to painstaking labor of love. So you keep doing the same thing repetitive over and over and over until you get it right. I still today struggle to do a quenelle. Um, it's just a fancy way of making like those cute little butter. I just can't do it. But with practice comes perfection. So the more you just keep practicing with butter, it keeps getting better. And it definitely teaches you that. Culinary is practice, 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 and you get it. And then sometimes you practice so much that you take those skills and do it with something else and you create something new. So it's definitely one of those kind of disciplines.
So you now do your culinary degree. You've been on MasterChef. You've worked under Michelin star chef. What made you decide to leave that all behind?
Okay, the honest truth behind that is that it just doesn't pay. Culinary is one of those careers where it's you do it just for the love. You're not gonna have a fancy house at the end of the day. You're not gonna, unless you're the lucky few, the Gordon Ramsays, the Guy Fieri's, those one in a million kind of things, which we all strive to be. But the reality is, sometimes you have to look at that and say, maybe that's just not me. And there's other ways. There's other things you can do to still be then happy with your life. I've always loved the creative side of software. So I'm a front end developer and we create websites, which still gives me the creative element of creating something new. So taking something you loved from culinary and just moving it to the software side has also been a happy place for me. It's afforded me a lot more in terms of the lifestyle that I want. With that, I still get to then do the influencing and private chefing because software isn't like a hectic 9 to 5. It's a nice 9 to 5 where some days it's a 9 to 5, some days it's a 9 to 1. So you have ample time to kind of play around with it. So it's given me that kind of balance between the two. And I've really tried to keep that and do something with that.
Do you think that intense work schedule of being a chef was kind of taking its toll?
Personally, on a person, I don't think so, but it does take strain on your family, your outside circle. You don't see your family much. I mean, I'd leave at 6 a.m. in the morning. I'd be back at about just after 12. There's no one's really up to be like, hey, let's have a chat. So you don't get to see your partner. And you're always tired. I mean, that was the first time I ever experienced napping during the day. I've never napped. It's never been a thing. But being a chef on a Sunday, I would be out like half the day just napping because the body's just that tired. So maybe it does actually take a big toll. I know it does take a toll on your back. If anything, being a chef will break your back in 3 years. If all of us were complaining like, my back, I can't stand here anymore. But Yeah, it's one of those.
And you mentioned to me, obviously, before this episode as well, that now you're more family focused. And I think maybe being a chef just took all that family focus off, you know?
100%. One thing I did notice, even with the French chefs, there was one of the guys there who he did have a good relationship with his kid, but he struggled because you only got to see your child now on a Sunday and a Monday, and there's nothing to do with them on those days. So it's either just going to walk a park, and it's not like you can go to the movies. It's not like you can take them to a museum. There's nothing. So it does put a little strain on your family in that regard.
How do you keep your passion for cooking alive now that you've stepped away from the culinary industry?
Let anybody give me a hard day, I want to cook something. I promise you, if there's a reason to cook, if there's someone who's just pissed you off, I go into the kitchen and I make a dish. I make dessert. I'll make anything just to not think about that. It's definitely a release, and because I do it in that way, I always need to try something new. So I hate kind of doing the same thing, and I always like to tweak it. So it's always about like trying to refine and change. So there's always switch your brain off on that field, go into the kitchen and just have yourself a moment. It's peaceful. It's not as strenuous as a corporate work world.
So what is your focus now? You know, becoming more like family orientated?
It's gonna definitely be a very unique balance. I was also asking myself that question this week. How do you fit having a big family, working a corporate job, and still wanting to be a private chef all into one basket? And the honest truth is, I've got no clue. If there's one thing I know is that life throws you lemons. Make apple juice and let them look at you and, oh, how the hell did you do that? So that's my goal. Definitely to find a balance, but of course take it head on. There will be some hiccups, I'm sure, but if anything, you do kind of get it.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned about life from cooking?
Trying something new. I sometimes question how some of those chefs out there come up with their flavor pairings. I mean, who has chocolate and fennel, or who has prawns with licorice? And you look at some of them and say, are you guys like okay?
Like a seafood dessert, or
Like you look at them and you're like, are you actually okay? Until you try it, you can't knock it till you've tried it. I've tasted some weird things and been like, I would have never done that, but because you've done it, let me try it, and been shocked that it makes sense, it works. So try different things. It's okay if you want to dip your chips into a McFlurry. It's okay if you want to dip your chips into other things too. So just try it.
Life short.
Yeah, just give it a shot.
What kind of new things have you tried recently?
New things. I'm trying to figure out, because I'm also like a little farmer now at heart. I grow my strawberries. And I'm trying to figure out something to do with these strawberries. They just now like started to fill my house up, and you come up with weird things. Everyone does like a jam, a compa or something, but like I want to cook with them in an actual meal. So like a strawberry and chicken roulade, or something which you don't do with strawberries. Just take it that way and see how you go. Everyone does desserts, so tweak it up, change, a bit of change.
And how are you with desserts compared to?
Oh, I love desserts more. So I'm a pastry chef at heart, and it's funny because I don't like sweet things. It's always such a balance that I like making them sweet. I will flood your children with as much sugar as I possibly can. No problem with that. But I probably just will have like the smaller slice of that cake because I know I'm just like, it's just too much. But I definitely like baking. Baking cakes, baking cupcakes, icing them. It's again a lot of a creative space, so it leans towards all the fun, crazy ideas in my brain. So they have some place to be put.
And it goes back to trying new things, I guess. If it's not a skill that you're good at, I think a lot of people look at challenges as like this huge obstacle overwhelmingly in front of them. When you change your perspective on it, you're always going to have obstacles
always
in front of you.
Oh no, life is an obstacle. I don't know how we make it past every hour, but it's definitely something I'd definitely say viewers should try. Just go out there and try something new. You'd be surprised at how you might not be good at it, but it's fun. It's really fun to do something that you've never done before.
100%. I mean, I did rock climbing few weeks back for the first time, and a few months back really, and I sucked at it. I was terrible. I think I was on like the second easiest course, but I
Don't
still.
worry. I try hike sometimes, and sometimes you look at it and you're like, okay, you know what? It's just not for me. This one is just not for me.
But otherwise, we get so roped into that same routine of doing the same stuff all of the time, and sometimes just a fresh perspective can just change everything for you.
100%. 100%. And the world's full of fresh perspectives. I mean, you find them in some of the weirdest places. So it's all about just taking that chance and looking for them. And I promise you, sometimes they'll hit you straight in the face.
But how do you open yourself up to those perspectives? Because I feel like these days we are so glued to our phones and looking what everyone else is doing online that we don't really communicate with people like we used to in the past.
Oh, I think that's probably one of the biggest questions that people still have is like, how do we get that? Because everyone finds it in different ways. Yeah, it's a very complicated one actually.
I mean, have you ever been in an elevator, for example, and you want to say hi to someone, you want to have a conversation, but you kind of get the feeling that both of you are just.
Oh no, I'm the opposite. I'm the guy who irritates you in the elevator. I sing along with the tune. You probably you turn to me and be like, okay, it's enough now. Hey, we understand, but I guess everyone is different, so it's a challenge for everyone in different ways. But there's always something nice to it. I guess the whole thing becomes it's better to try than to not, because you'll never then know if you were ever then good at it, because there's no reference. I'd rather suck at a million things than be good at just one thing, because then what am I just going to be that? Am I just going to be a software engineer? Am I just going to be a chef?
Yeah.
No, man, you must try everything. Every industry, every field, I think, yeah, give it a knock.
I think it's difficult, especially at our age, because you almost get indoctrinated at school to think that failure is such a bad thing. And then you get out of school and
I was about to say failure is all you get when you leave school.
yeah, failure is the only way that you grow.
I was about to say if you haven't failed after school, you haven't lived. Like that's an honest truth, because I'm about to be a dad, and every day I'm like to myself, I'm sure I'm gonna fail at that first. But you have to fail once to know how to do it a different way. And maybe that way will fail, but I'm still not doing the failed way. I'll get a different way. And you just keep improving. I really think the hardest thing with people is accepting criticism. And I think that actually springs it all together, is that just because we're scared to maybe disappoint someone or get the critique from someone, so we'd rather just not try.
Not ask.
Yeah, it's okay. And that's where you fail, because Mike knows a lot more about podcasting than I do. So why not ask Mike? Mike, how would I set up my first podcast? Sims knows more about cooking. I failed at making this cake. It doesn't want to rise. Sims, how do we do it? How do we get it? And I guess, yeah, it's the critiquing that people are scared of, but it makes you better. It really does just improve, and it improves your skill.
So do you think you almost have to view it as feedback instead of criticism, because especially in business, I think a lot of people, including myself sometimes, take business too personally.
Oh, yeah. You have to separate. That is something we have to try our best to separate. But it's also not a bad thing, because it shows that you have the passion and love for what you're doing in business then. It's very hard to receive critiques, so we try our best not to be critiqued.
We don't want to put ourselves in that situation, sure.
So it sometimes does make you very prideful for what you're doing, but that's the only way you'll get better, to be honest, is to just take it. Chin up and take the knock. Tomorrow you'll wake up and at least you're not going to do it like you did the last.
this is a heavy one, but what has been your biggest failure? And how have you grown from it?
I don't think I've had my biggest failure yet. I've had many failures along the way. I tried to be a DJ, tried to be a producer, tried to be. Yo, what didn't I try to be actually in my life? Tried to play golf, not good at that either. Yeah, I can't think of one specific moment that would be like a big failure for me. But all those failures have amounted to where I am today. So I don't even view them as failures. I think of them as just stepping stones in my journey to where I am now. So yeah, it is a bit complicated. I do think there's many hurdles still ahead of me, so I'll wait for those and take them as they come. Yeah, it's a journey, right? It's not about the end. It's about how you get there.
100%. So what would you say are 3 key, let's call them secret ingredients to a happy life?
It's definitely not happy life, happy wife, because sometimes an unhappy wife is a good wife too. 3 key ones is definitely try something new whenever you can. Another one would be take everything with a pinch of salt.
I like that. That's got a little bit of a
take
culinary thing to it.
Take everything with a pinch of salt because not everyone's going to be your fan. And 3, have fun making a mess. Life is a mess, so just have fun. I mean, you only get one, so I mean that's it. Just enjoy it.
Almost rather than being hard on ourselves for the mistakes that we do make, taking it lightly.
Yeah, just life goes on. It's not like we remembers what the Guptas did, right? We've forgotten about them already.
Yeah.
So life goes on.
And Sims, my final question for you. If you had to be on death row and you had one meal, what would you choose and why?
Oh shit. Okay, it's a bit weird. I would order a 30-plate prawns from Mozambique with 2 side portions of the coconut rice.
This is not sponsored by Mozambique.
But I promise you, I would destroy that. That is my favorite meal currently. We go there like on payday Sunday with the missus, and we order one of those. And I eat the prawns, she has the rice, but it's perfectly fine with me. Just 30 prawns.
Love that, Sims, and thank you for doing today. It was such a cool episode and very different. I mean, we've never had anyone from MasterChef before, and yeah, you just offer such different perspectives, you know, and I think we all need to try new things, and sometimes the fear holds us back, but you're living proof that if you view failure as a failure, it will be a failure, but you can turn it into a success.
Yeah, it's onwards and upwards, right?
100%.
The joys. Thank you so much, Mike, for having me.
Cool.
It was fun.